Bonjour, bienvenue, hi, welcome. Today I'm sharing with you an adventure day outside of Paris, east side of Paris, at Provins, a small town in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the countryside. And it was a fascinating visit as I discovered that this town was once a very, very important economic place in the Middle Ages. In the 12th and 13th century, it was once a very wealthy merchant city. As per today, it's a small town. For most probably the first time in my life, I took a train at La Gare de l'Est, the East Station, as usually I go west because life is peaceful there. On my way to the station, I had a look at l'Église Sainte-Trinité as it's now finally renovated and beautiful. First interesting thing of this journey was discovering this painting in Gare de l'Est, as it shows that before, back then, trains would have separate doors for each cabin. The train ride is only 1 hour and 20 minutes, and once you get there you can do everything by walking, so it's very simple to get there. And they schedule plenty of trains, so you have many time options. In French, we have a saying that says "Les voyages forment la jeunesse," and it translates into "travels broadens your mind." But the real translation would be "travels make youngster more mature." I would say I like to learn something on each adventure day, and this was one day where I learned a lot. First, I was so grateful that I live now here today in Paris, as I wouldn't have made it very long in the rough time of the Middle Ages. I need more comfort than they had. So Provins is a medieval city that explains a lot about the 11th, 12th and 13th century. Back then, in the 1200s, Provins was a very wealthy merchant city. So here in Provins, you will learn everything about the Middle Ages, and since the beginning, Provins had an unfair advantage as it's seated at the crossroads of two major commercial corridors. Since the 9th century, trade was growing in this area, and at some point they were able to mint their own coin. Under the protection of the Counts of Champagne, Provins hosted very renowned trade fairs. Back then, agricultural and trade fairs were crucial for the economy. They held twice a year in the upper town and once a year in the lower town. Thanks to its success, Provins became a banking center and its coin was accepted all around Europe. So, from 1120 to 1320, the fairs in Provins were very renowned. But in the late 1200s, Philippe le Bel, also known as Philippe IV or Le Roi de Fer, the Iron King, came to visit several times Provins and asked for so big taxes that it devastated the economy. His harsh taxes caused the inhabitants to flee and ended this period of prosperity. So I learned a lot more about the Middle Ages fair. They were held twice or 3 times a year, and they were basically the ancestors of today's international financial hubs. They are a major milestone in global economic history. This is why I love adventure days so much, because you'll always learn something. All that being said, Provins is now an UNESCO heritage site. There, I visited almost every site except for one, and I attended 2 shows that were very interesting. One show was dedicated to horseback falconry. It was very impressive to see the flying skills of the birds of prey such as eagles, vultures, falcons. Of course, I visited the rose garden, but I was very frustrated as I visited early in the season and they were not blooming yet. Provins is very well known for rose products. First, I visited the Benedictine Priory that followed the rule of Saint Benedict. It's a pretty strict set of guidelines that governs the daily life. The priory itself was a self-contained community where monks and nuns lived, ate and talked, but above all, where they gathered to pray. And it's said that the Champagne fairs actually started this way thanks to the pilgrimage. The priory was a place of pilgrimage, and the crowd visiting had obviously needs such as food and supplies. Then I visited the underground galleries. Originally, these galleries were probably used as a quarry to extract a specific type of fuller's earth for degreasing woolen cloth. The cloth industry flourished in Provins. Once the cavities had been dug out, the town's inhabitants put them to a variety of uses, and they became hiding places, storerooms during the Champagne fairs, or places of worship. The undergrounds go very far, but I only visited a small part of them. Going to the upper part of the town, I visited the Thaïs barn of Provins. It houses different scenes and characters to bring to life the main crafts and the merchant activities in the Middle Ages. So I met the Italian merchant, the Provins woolen cloth merchant, the money changer, the Flemish merchant, the letter writer, and so on. This stone house is typical of the architecture of Provins in the 12th and 13th centuries. From bottom to top, the lower room was used as a warehouse, the first floor as a shop, and the top floor as a dwelling. The vaulted cellar is very impressive with its cross-ribbed vaulting and capitals adorned with foliage. Next, I visited the César Tower. It's very emblematic of the medieval city of Provins and a concentrate of history. It's very impressive both in size and shape. It served as a watchtower, a refuge, and a prison. Once I had climbed all the floors, I could enjoy the splendid view of the surrounding countryside. You could easily get dizzy with the spiral staircase getting you down. The second show I attended was The Legend of the Knights. It was telling the story of the return from crusades of Earl Thibaut IV of Champagne, close to the beautiful Blanche de Castille. Thibaut and his knights managed to push the forces of evil away and protect Provins. As per the rose garden, it shows 450 varieties of roses, and it's the perfect place to have a cup of tea. Et voilà, I hope you enjoyed this journey back to the Middle Ages. In the next video, it will be more about fashion and garments with two very interesting exhibitions right now in Paris. And d'ici là, au revoir. Et d'ici là, au revoir, take care, have a great day. C'est parti, c'est parti. Maintenant qu'on est maquillé comme une voiture volée, il faut y aller.